If you're building a business in 2026 and you're not using AI employees, you're cooked. And I don't say this to fearmonger that, the AI is going to take over the world and stuff like that, because the reality is AI has already taken over the world. And businesses already are implementing your business. And there's massive layoffs and all these things happening. And again, this is not to cause fear, but this is just to make you aware that this is not a joke. This is really happening. And I realized that the biggest shift that I realized in the AI space is that you really need to stop treating AI as a co-pilot. Most people using AI right now, they are the center of every single execution. What you need to start doing is using AI as an like basically AI is the autopilot. And you're going to start hearing more venture capitalists and more tech billionaires talk more and more and more about this. How to build an AI native company, how to transition to becoming AI native, how to actually get AI to do all the work for you and stuff like that. And this is not a far reality. This is not far fetched. Although Microsoft says we're like 18 months away from this actually happening, I have already been living in this reality probably since last end of last year. And I realize this because I've been implementing AI agents into businesses since around like mid 20 to late 2023, since the fall of 2023. And when I started implementing AI voice agents, that was at the very beginning of the whole wave. It wasn't even considered a business, like it wasn't even considered vertical. So seeing that whole entire space evolve, and now you see AI agents everywhere, like AI voice agents, and it just became this whole thing. So actually being a part of it and witnessing a lot of the evolution in the space is just so crazy, because even last year there was a whole craze around N8N and stuff like that. So I'm going to share with you here a couple of things, but this video is for you if you are interested in how to become AI native, what that actually means, why the time is now, like why you should actually prioritize this. I'll share a little bit about my journey. I'll share some examples. I'll share like what the difference of all of that is. And if you are interested in this kind of content, hit the subscribe button, follow me. I'm on all the platforms, and of course, let me know in the comments if you have any questions, and that will help me make the next video. So, what I wanted to share with you, right, is when starting with like the transition of how I realized that we were all using AI wrong. When was implementing AI voice agents into businesses, one of the biggest challenges that I experienced is getting people to actually use the agents that were built. And it's not because it's like it's not like a bad installation or it's your fault or it's their fault. The problem is that people are just overwhelmed and busy and they don't want to touch things. They don't want to learn things. They don't want to touch buttons. And I realized that, let's just say as an example, if I implemented an AI voice agent into a dentist's office and they were running a springtime promotion for teeth cleaning, if they didn't go in and update the prompt or optimize the prompt, then when it comes summer or winter, that offer is outdated. So how in the world is the agent supposed to know that that offer is expired? This is normally like what you will hear a lot of people say. This is context engineering. The better the quality of data, the more accurate, the better the results will be. So if you're in that situation where you're implementing agents, one of the services that you offer on top of that is usually like some sort of retention, maintenance, adoption, enablement, like, and if you're not, you should be adding that as part of the service. And of course, that part of the pricing and the offer and stuff like that. So that brings me to the realization I had last year. I think it was around the fall. Around the fall, I started coaching a lot of people again, and I realized that at the time I was building like go high level N8N automations, retail agents, stuff like that. And I realized that the questions that I kept getting from people, if I'm building someone a marketing campaign with AI, for example, I would set up the funnel and go on Lovable. I would connect all the emails and stuff on Go High Level, just connect all the pieces. And the feedback I always got is like, how do you know what to do? Like, how do you know that if you're setting up a landing page, you should also set up emails and this and that and the automations? And the response was always like, well, I've just been doing this for too long. Like, I kind of just know it's second nature, you know? It's just that experience that comes with it. So, but then I would realize is that when you leave them with their system, all of a sudden they don't really know what to do with it, right? So, where do I start? How do I maintain it? Blah, blah, blah. And sometimes that is paralyzing and that's fear, because then they don't know what to do with what they just received. And then because of that fear, and they don't want to break it, they don't go into the platform and they don't play around with it and they don't make updates and and change the prompts and stuff like that. Or maybe you have a different kind of client that goes in there and changes the prompt and breaks everything you spent hours building. Also had that happen. So when I started building this whole thing, I realized, okay, if the problem at the end of the day is if we're all building AI and we're essentially becoming way more efficient with AI, and now we're still executing, how do we just remove that bottleneck where the human doesn't have to be executing? The human doesn't have to be the bottleneck of what's going on. How do we actually build this in a different light? And that's what really started, like, out of curiosity, I started going down this path that I didn't like. Again, this is just very early on to where the world is headed, but that's where I started realizing, like, AI is capable to do the work. AI should be doing the work, and we should stop pressing all the buttons and we should let AI start handling everything. So what ended up happening is I ended up building IzzyOS. If you run a business, if you're a coach, consultant, speaker, if you run an agency or anything like that, you already know that you have to be building funnels, you have to be posting lead magnets, doing a lot of appointment setting and sending emails and all of these different things. So I realized, based on all my marketing and all my experience, how can I solve this problem for myself? Because I was spending $20,000 a month on a team, and I would still have to train them. I would still have to do pretty much all the work, and they would just go and build. So I spent a lot of time like writing briefs and stuff like that, and I would still have to go and double check and, like, put like finishing touches and things like that. And then I would have to spend time training them so they're up to speed on how to execute the tasks faster, and all these different things. We're all familiar with it, especially if you're growing a business. You're already familiar. It's very draining, it's very time consuming, and it's very expensive, because then they churn and then they leave and they go to another company, and now you spent all this time training the perfect people to now start over. And it makes growing a business hard. So when I started realizing, okay, if humans are still the problem in the sense of executing the AI work, and if AI is smart enough to actually do the work, then let's just start building actually does the work. And that's what I did. So that's what I wanted to share with you. I wanted to share a little bit because this just it's not just for IzzyOS. This transcends my business. This actually is for my entire life. And what I have here on the screen, it's Billionaire Bedoya, basically. I have high aspirations that, and I'm building actually towards a $1 billion business. If you've been following me on LinkedIn for a little while, you know that this is the goal. And in the AI space, is very possible. There's someone recently that just had an idea. In a month and a half, he got funded $1.5 billion. AI space is very volatile. There's a lot of companies that they go like zero to, Lovable is one of them, right? Zero to, I think it was like what, like 100, 200 million ARR. They got funded, they got valued at like a couple billion. They got funded again in the span of like less than a year. Now they're a $6.6 billion company. So AI space is really, really volatile, is really high growth. And so that's essentially what I'm building towards. So in this scenario, I wanted to share with you a little bit about AI employees. So when I say AI employees, I don't mean custom GPTs. I don't mean more prompt books. I don't mean like even just sharing like skill files, right? What I actually mean is AI that actually works inside of the business. So for example, if I go into my vault here, and if I go into company, these are all the employees that are currently running the business, and there's a bunch of them. And if I go into the roster, you'll see that there are tons of them, and they're actually running. There's different things that they're running. And if I go to team view, this is a different AI employee section. This is the ones that actually oversee from a higher perspective, right? So I have my AI employees that work in the actual business stuff, and these are the ones that have like more control over other things that I want them to have. And then they're not just doing, like, they're not, I guess, how can I explain this? These are essentially AI employees that I have built, trained. I have assigned them like goals. I have assigned them all these different aspects so that they actually do a good job in my business. In order for this to work, though, you have to have clean data in the sense that it has to actually understand what your business does, who you sell to, what your goals are, and you have to constantly be updating that because your life keeps being updated, right? Every day something changes, something shifts. So as I started building this AI native business, I realized an AI native essentially just means that instead of building a business where humans are at the where we've been doing everything, like everyone has been doing this all along, right? We're building a human-centric business with AI bolted on top everywhere. An AI native business is we're building AI as the center of the business, and then we build AI infrastructure around it to support it so that it's fully automated, it's fully run by AI. So here I have a few of them, right? Like for example, my information architect. If I go my information architect, she has her own identity, she has her own soul essentially, the scope of what she's supposed to be doing, all these different things attached, tools, knowledge bases, guardrails, growth for how I want her to grow into her role, and of course the prompt and stuff like that. So this is what it means to actually build AI employees. And then when you see them in action, here I'll show you an example. For example, in my engineering on Slack, I connected them on Slack so they could have a conversation. And here you can see, like in general, this is like the first day that I brought them all into Slack. I had them all introduce themselves, and then they could have like get to know each other essentially. And then if we go over to engineering, for example, as I start getting like all the daily updates and stuff like that. So, for example, this guy here, Brian the Brain Keeper, he went in there, and then the other AI employees replied to update their tasks as well if it was relevant to what Brian was talking about in this case. These are all AI employees. There's not a single human in here. And how do I view? Let me see if I can find. Oh, actually, you know what? If I go to general, you can see these are all the employees right now. I have the visionary, the unicorn advisor, CTO, brain keeper, design police, code reviewer, CFO, all the way down to the stand-up conductor, the training lead, culture keeper. Like there's literally so many AI employees in here. And I had to train them, I had to build them, I had to connect them to tools, I had to connect them to all of this. So when I say AI is running my business, I don't mean I'm using custom GPT. I don't mean I'm using even N8N. I mean like I'm actually building AI employees that are having responsibilities and executing responsibilities daily. And I built this whole entire, let's just call it as like headquarters for my personal use, so I can actually keep a better track. So when I see progress, for example, here I can actually see, whoops, let's go back to progress. So here I can see this is today's top 5 things that I got to work on. The things in progress are the ones down here. And if I click, this is what I have if you see my, I don't know if it'll show on the video, but I have 4 Cloud Code terminals working here in the background. And this is essentially, it's keeping track of all of that. And it's marking each task as done as Cloud Code finishes like a certain step in here. This doesn't have to be nice for our eyes. It just has to be enough for Claude to understand. So as Claude is going through this, it's marking each step as done. So I can just come in here and have a visual. And it's just, this is what's actually being worked right now through Cloud Code. So we're essentially switching everything, right? And then at the end, when the things are marked as complete, they're all completed, and Greta signs off. And Greta is another AI employee, and this is basically my QA, my head of operations slash like quality advisor agent right now, to ensure that it doesn't violate any of the rules or the things that I normally do. So when it comes down to building, when it comes down to running a business, stuff like that, you need your AI employees to actually be working inside of the business. If they're just, just, I don't know, just other like basic automations that I keep seeing people say, oh, look at my AI agent. I'm not saying this to like hate on anyone, but you really need it to be working inside the business. You need to stop being the one that is executing everything. Because I've also seen a lot of like AI platforms, for example, where it's like, oh, look at my AI platform, right? And then you go, you log in, and you have to still do all the work. And that's not the point. The point is to get AI to do the work. And that's exactly how I built IzzyOS. So IzzyOS, as a quick example, I built one of the biggest things inside of IzzyOS is the campaign builder. So it's essentially a campaign builder that builds your entire marketing, your entire funnels, strategy, email marketing, SMS marketing automations, also schedules them automatically, built-in chatbot for that funnel, built-in voice agents for that funnel, content to help you push out that funnel, and I don't know what else. That's basically like the majority of it. It's essentially 12 agents running 110 actions in under 5 minutes, generating a full marketing campaign. So for example, if I go here, I have, this is one of the campaigns. I have the strategy here. It's all there. It's essentially the strategy that the AI is building for itself. Then I have the funnel. The funnel is here. I'll go to it. There it is. Okay, so then we have the funnel, right? It was all built literally in less than 5 minutes. Content is there if I want to use this content. The communications channel is basically the email, all the emails that are populated, all the things that need to go, the agents, the chatbot, everything that I needed to essentially run my campaign, right? So this is what essentially, this is just one of the functions, but essentially this is what you guys need to start thinking about. How can I stop taking all the actions in my business, and how can I actually start thinking of AI as an autopilot in my business, where it's actually building the things you needed to build, carrying out the actions you need to carrying out, problem solving between the actual agents and the employees. I actually, funny enough, one of the first days that I was running this, I was like onboarding all these AI employees into business. I think one of them messed up or something, and then the other one, there was like office drama. The other one was like, "Oh my gosh, we gotta fire Greta." And I was just cracking up. It's like, this is crazy, right? This is pretty wild stuff. So that's essentially the gist of it, right? You have to start thinking about how can you actually use AI employees in your business to do your work, remove yourself from having to make every single like decision and execution, and essentially start driving your business to becoming autonomous, which means that at some point in the near future it'll just completely be self running itself by itself, because it's using AI with all of your training and all of its self-learning loops as well. If you like this kind of information, if you want to follow along, if you have specific questions, maybe you want me to like share some videos on like how the Slack agents work or whatever, just let me know, comment below. And if you would like to get something like this implemented in your business, send me a message, and then we can just figure it out. So, all right, thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.